this will be a little bit of the experiment, discussion between two artists which specialize in working with archives and found footage, and the subject which will tie this conversation is the film which you have screened a while ago, called Village Detective. First of all, just for the beginning, to a little bit to warm up. I would like to ask you, Bill, what is how do you distinguish in your work between the concept, the art, and the truth? Is it you probably heard that question thousand of times, but I would like to make some kind of distinction between your attitude to it and maybe attitude of Siergiej.
It's okay.
We conducted in English.
Oh, okay. That'll save a lot of time.
That's right.
No, I only laugh because you propose a rather complicated question as a warm-up. You know, this is the question that Żarov addresses at the beginning and the end of the film. How does art reflect life, and how do we weave life into art? I'm a firm believer that we can rely on this hypothesis that in some ways film is some kind of physical manifestation of our memory. It seems like it might be a far-fetched idea, but if you lean on it, it tends to hold up because, and when I say film, I mean physical celluloid. Before we, and what we've just watched obviously are all digital films, but I'm talking about these ones that are able to survive the century, and in the century I'm really discussing the 20th century. What happens is that when you do find a survivor, one that is, it's sort of like a vessel that has a sunken film or a film that has floated like flotsam and jetsam and ended up in my hands in some ways. And that's kind of a miracle. And all the marks that are on it show that journey. And the way that it got there is a story in and of itself. And so
It survived, right?
it's a surviving story, and it's a story of its journey. So I usually start there. I mean, I started out as a painter, so I was primarily engaged with the pictorial quality of damaged film and how it related to abstract expressionism in painting. And as I explored that more, it seemed clear to me that when I found a piece of footage that I found visually compelling, there was almost always a story around it. So rather than find a story and search for the perfect piece of footage, I would let the perfect piece of footage wash up to my shores and find the story around it. So I'm something of an opportunist.
Something which wash up to your shores is something important regarding your last film, but we will talk about this later.
Yeah, with the Village Detective, of course, Johan Johansson contacted me because he's seen these films on the news. You know.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Is there?
So
Are we warmed up?
yeah, not yet. Możesz. Okay. So,
Yes.
okay, Siergiej, could you?
Want a microphone?
No, you. Okay, just a second. So, would you tell us briefly what is your attitude towards the real archived materials, your concept, your art, and the truth?
What do you mean when you say truth?
No, I don't know. I mean,
don't know. And me
I
too
would
also.
like to listen to your opinion. Is it exist or?
Truth?
Mhm.
Yeah, but
Not in the film?
How we define this concept of truth?
Oh, maybe you have this concept of truth.
Okay. Yeah, but simple concept is we can see what happened in front of the camera. That's all. And after that, truth influence from context more and more and more. So, and exists artistic truth. It's another thing.
So,
So-
what do you mean by artistic truth?
It's difficult to define.
Just to warm up.
Yeah, but it is a truth from artistic point of view. Yeah.
Bill, would you tell us what did you find interesting? What did you find inspirational in Siergiej Łoźnica documentary films?
Well, the examination, of, I don't know how you work with the archives, but for instance, in State Funeral, to uncover the piece of film and then to examine it and to unpack it and to make a whole hypothesis out of it, I found quite breathtaking. 5 years ago when you had Auschwitz here.
Austerlitz, yes.
Yeah. And with that film, well, I've seen it also, and then in Indiana when we met there. The observation of what seems to be was sort of this conjuncture of a modern eye on a historic monument, and what is the disconnect there? And I found that was a really compelling way to frame a film as well.
And you have mentioned the state funeral. You were curious how Siergiej started the work on archives on that film. Okay.
Yeah, I was. I understand that you worked with a singular archivist, and so I was wondering how that came about. That you met the archivist and.
Yeah, but first idea was to make a genesis of the Soviet funeral ritual, starting from Lenin and finishing with Stalin.
Right.
So, and through the different funerals like Kirov, Dzerzhinsky, it's fantastic footage, and
Right.
nobody made anything from that. So, but and tell the story of Soviet power and Soviet how Stalin killed his colleague and collaborators and his way to the power. And when I just said about this idea to one of the archivists, she said me that, we have only Stalin's funeral, I didn't remember, 70 hours or something like that. I said, what? Wow, I would like to see. So, and after that, when I watched this footage, I realized that everything about Soviet state you can see, and everything about Soviet religion you can see in this footage. And in this particular moment already, you can already predict how this country finished, that this is the end of this country which built by Stalin, and he keep all this country in his hand. And also also for me it was like always we thinking that Soviet Union was an atheistic country. No. It's a deep religion, and what kind of religion? It's a very old religion, kind of pagan religion, some sort of. So, and you also can realize that. And so after that, of course, I decided to make only this film. So, and the rest is technical things. It's just a matter of how I will structure the film, and how I will choose and what I will choose, and how time will move in this film also, because it's like symphony. You have in this film it's many layers, and in one moment I change completely to the reportage. And at the end of this film, it's a reportage from a funeral procession, and time going in different way, and different essence of time and feeling of the time, because it is like step by step what happened one after other, no parallel editing and etc.
Does that happen to you often, where you start making one film and you find something that you focus on, and that becomes
yes,
the film?
2 times.
Yeah.
So far 2 times. Another it was a film trial, and also I would like to show this different kind of trial till the moment when I find this treasure from one trial, from the so-called industrial party trial.
Yeah.
It was real like some, как это сказать, sentence from sky.
Yeah.
Because I wake up during the night, and you know how our brain work. In Krasnogorsk they have a very good description. So, and I saw that this industrial party trial, Soviet film, was described like 2 copies of one film. Yes, 5 real each copy, and I didn't pay when I watch attention the length of this each copy, each reel.
Yeah.
And during the night I wake up with the thought that it is 2 copies but different lengths.
And that was your
Probably it's not a second copy.
Yeah.
But this is brain tell me, you know,
Yeah.
work, you had work, still work, and I call immediately to assistant and saying, morning, just go, taxi and go, just copy this second copy.
Yeah.
And he copied and sent me and saying, Siergiej, this is a footage. Everything what they shot, they just keep it and named as a second copy of the film.
Right. So it was
Wow.
hiding in plain sight.
Yes, nobody knows that
Yeah.
this footage exists. It is, and I also changed my idea and made this.
So I think that Siergiej's description how he approached to archives, which brings state funeral film, brought us a bit to the reality of your latest film, Bill, Village Detective. So as I said earlier, this again somehow occurred on your shores. It has been found underwater. And was there something which has striking you especially, or it was such a treasure that you decided to work on that because somehow also from above it came to your shores?
Yeah, well, so there was something like that it dropped in my lap, and also from a composer whose work I'd worked with Johann before on the Miners' Hymns, and it seemed like it could be another opportunity to work with him. He was a very fine composer. What I found compelling was that this wasn't just found in any ocean, it was found in the middle of the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean, right? If it's near Iceland, that's where the two plates meet. And so it was really sort of an offering from the east to the west near this neutral or fluctuating island. And so that alone was compelling to me. By the time I'd heard about it, it had already been found for a couple weeks, and they'd identified what it was. And therefore, I was able to look up Mikhail Zharov on IMDb, and I realized that he had this filmography that spanned the entire 20th century. So even before I'd seen the footage, I said, well, here's a way of framing this story. This guy had a film career that neatly superimposes over the history of the Soviet Union, and then this print from later in his career is found in the bottom of the ocean between the two continents. There has to be a story there. And knowing that he'd made 70-some films, I was convinced that he would, each role would have to reflect some sort of, it would have to have been accepted, right, of course, by the Soviet Union for him to have taken and to have depicted. So it was only when I started researching I realized that he chose these very interesting roles, or he was cast in these very interesting roles, where he sort of represented always someone from the past time. You know, if he was, I guess when he was young and good looking, he was suitable for playing a revolutionary, but very quickly he played someone from pre-revolutionary times, who a thief or a gambler, or somebody who was not playing into the collective ideal. And then as he aged, again, he was always someone who was sort of stuck in an older version of the Soviet Union, Stalin's version. And certainly by the time he makes The Village Detective, he's sort of this old fuddy-duddy detective in town who the young people are mocking and rolling their eyes about.
I have a question. If about truth, if everything in opposite way, you find this Mikhail Zharov, which a great actor, make a film about him, and after that fishing something in the water and destroyed this picture, and if in this case, and made this film, if in this case it will be a different feeling from a film, different perception.
If it had been in reverse.
Yes, if the things in life, you know, you just, because it's such an interesting idea to fish, to find Norway close to Iceland, and this is good, okay. But if things in opposite way, it will be a different film. If you made the same film but with another history. It's about truth, you know.
Yeah, no, there's no way I could have found him without this discovery, right? He didn't exist in my psychology, or
yes, of course,
or in any of my. Now you, I'm sure, were familiar with his friend, yes, with his films, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but somebody else doesn't matter.
Yeah. I was surprised to learn how famous he was of especially in Eastern Bloc countries, and people of a certain age. But when I first began that research and I went to Moscow in October of 2017, I was invited to show Dawson City Frozen Time at Garage. And there was young curators there, I told you this, who were saying, well, what are you going to be doing tomorrow at Gus Filmafond? And I said, well, I'm looking for the titles of Mikhail Zharov. And they were like, who? You know, this went totally over their heads. I mean, these were young, hip, arty people. They'd never heard of him. So then I realized that I was looking for people of a certain age who would know of him. And so I started to make a test. You know, if you had a Russian accent, I would ask you, you know, have you heard of Mikhail Zharov? And so the FedEx guy came to my door. He had a Russian accent. I said, let me ask you something. Have you ever heard of the actor Mikhail Zharov? Of course. Mikhail Zharov is a great actor, you know, and a younger woman who works in my community garden, I asked her and she said, yes, I know him, but I'm an old soul, you know, and so it would differ, you know, but not unlike people not knowing who Cary Grant or Humphrey Bogart is, and you know, it's a generational thing. But I thought that he had a particularly interesting career in that he was considered a great actor, and an actor who fluctuated with the political times and survived, but largely, you know, was unknown to half the world. He would be known in Russia and a handful of other countries, but it speaks of the great oceans between us, that someone with that immense popularity can also be unknown to half the world, and that continues. That is our lack of communication.
Yeah, but your film now is it's in avant-garde, you know, because I can imagine that after many years we will discover the Soviet films after fishing them somewhere, you know.
So, but who was Mikhail Zharov in your life?
In my life,
if he plays any role?
yes, of course. I after I watching your film, I just come back and find this film because it's a few films where he played this detective in the Village Detective, yes. And I watch all of them. So, and I remember, of course, it's 70s and my childhood, and but he's a great artist, you know. He played in Eisenstein film, the Ivan Terrible. So, and in many films, and he is a very kind, nice person. I mean, as an actor, you know, he's play such a kind people and nice people, and so, and of course, it's impossible not to love him because it's so так много доброты.
So much good in him.
So much good in him. Yes, doesn't matter. He play in Soviet films. Yes? Do we have any problem with Soviet film?
But if he was a detective, so there must be some bad things going on in the village.
Yes. But he solved it in a very kind way.
Well, this is the joke, right? That he's a detective and he doesn't have anything to do, right? You know, because the society is perfect, you know. So, yeah.
Was that Bill? Was that some concept behind that film, which you would like to show Mikhail Zharov in so many creations of a one collective person, or you were just amazed by the variety of faces he's able to put on?
Well, I mean, he was in a number of roles, and I knew that I could make him age through the edit, and that would be a lot of fun. Thankfully, I had people who were working inside Goss Film Fund who were very helpful and could pull certain scenes for me, and so I didn't have to scan entire films to get my clips, especially with this early stuff. But he switches pretty quick. He's a good-looking guy one year, and then the next year they got a big beard on him, and he's got a big belly. So he sort of played the uncle for the bulk of his career. He was, or the grandfather. He was always associated with an older, out-of-step generation, from fairly early on. So it's by the time he was in his 30s. And when we see him playing that gambler, for instance, he's kind of, he's living a life that's not approved, right? And he's in direct violation with his, or in direct conflict with the revolutionary group who sets him up. I didn't know all that about him when I started. It was only from watching the films and translating them that I started to learn that this guy had actually a very peculiar career. He was deeply loved, but always sort of loved for being out of step or for being having his foibles. Right? He never upheld like the ideal Soviet man. He was always someone who was flawed, and I thought that was interesting. That made him so lovable, and that his, the songs that he sang, he had a terrible voice. Even what we hear here, I think, is his son overdubbing him. He had a very nasally and high-pitched voice, but his songs were beloved, and they were sung in the streets, and to some degree, that what's made the films more popular.
I would like to ask you, Siergiej, about that special character. Do you remember the way he was somehow stepping out of the scene, that films with him no more were produced? He was just he has finished his career. Was there do you remember, was there kind of a lack of his personality in the Russian cinema in the late Soviet cinema? People were upset that he finished his career. Do you remember the way he was stepping out of his career?
He died in 1981. Yes, I think so. Yeah. But you asked me a very complicated question because I did not remember this moment, and but I remember that a lot of films with him was screened and broadcast on TV, and for me, he is not stepping out. He with films was always so, but I didn't remember his last film. You know what kind of film where he played?
I think the last one was the third Aniskin.
Maybe, probably.
Yeah.
Yes,
and these were made for TV, and he directed them.
Yes.
So
Aniskin and Fantomas.
Fantomas,
so. Yeah. But
and Aniskin again, and then Aniskin Fantomas.
But I remember it was also in the cinema. These films were I watched in cinema. Yeah.
And I think one of his last roles was as Falstaff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Which I think he waited his whole life. He said, "This is the moment, I can do it."
Have you shown this film in Russia? Do you have some feedback from the audience, or maybe from some special audience like film critics?
Yeah, we premiered, the world premiere was at the Moscow Film Festival in April of 2021, which seems like a very long time ago. And I believe they put it on an IMAX screen, so I wish I could have seen it, but I was not there. I'm sorry, it was in April 2021. And, there was a Q&A not unlike this that was conducted via Zoom, and there was, of course, people who were amazed to see that footage in 4K, in restoration and at that size. It was sort of a conjuring or a bringing him back to life. And, I think that whether something is found at the bottom of the ocean or it's found in an unlabeled can, it's the same thing. It's lost to us until we can lay our hands on it, or it washes up, or we have a epiphany in the middle of the night. And many of our films are hiding in plain sight in archives, whether they're mislabeled or unlabeled, or they just have drifted so far out of the consciousness, or they're in a different language, or people no longer are interested in old things that are in cans. There's a lot of ways that this history can drift to the bottom of the ocean. And so I think the Russian audience in particular were appreciative that I, as a Westerner who speaks no Russian, had embraced this as a concept and was offering it back as sort of an examination of their history. And as the
were they somehow specifics of what was your outcome of that examination? Did they ask you what do you think about that person, or what do you think about this kind of career? What did it represent?
Yeah. They were adamant that he was a great actor, and that's how he should be remembered. And for me, of course, he was an actor, but he was also a cipher. He was the captain of these vessels that had not just the one from the bottom of the ocean, but the one from the archives as well. That he was some sort of divining rod that stitched together this filmed history that in this way that it would somehow reflect a truth about the Soviet Union, to get back to your concept of truth, through fiction. But I don't know if they were that interested. I mean, I think it was sort of a far-flung thought to begin with, but I remember that the person leading the Q&A was, he thought it was a revelation to see this guy acting again, and
right. But by the way, why two distinguished filmmakers who works on archive materials somehow don't like to speak about the truth? This is. I understand your attitude, but I think that maybe somebody should listen to you. Why are you laughing at that?
Maybe you're the only one who knows the truth, Artur. Nobody goes around saying they know the truth, do they?
Nobody asked.
Yeah, but not only filmmakers who work with archive. Any artist. Let's reduce to the music. Can you say musical truth? No sense, no sense. Yes, truth of the black square. It looks like reality, but it's not. It is a shadow on this screen. That's all. And truth, it is what you're thinking when you watch it. This is truth, what happened with you as a spectator. It's true because it's happened in your head. You start to love, hate, and think, and this is truth. But no, this is a provocation for thoughts and for feelings. I don't think that this is the main goal for art to find truth. It's for court.
But there is a way that you can find your way into a project where you feel like you're at least being true to yourself or true to a sense of parameters about making a project, right? So if I feel like a reel of film has landed in my lap, well, there's a provocation, right? I've been called somehow, you know, and this is, I'm simply following through on something. I haven't gone out and said, I need to make a film about the Soviet Union. This is my way in, right? So this is some sort of truth, you know? And then what I make it from that, like you say, is it's going to be a truth for whoever watches it, you know?
Thank you so much for your time, for your conversation. Bardzo Państwu dziękuję za bycie z nami i zapraszam na dalszą część festiwalu. Dziękuję bardzo.